Hi, so once again, my name is Anne. I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Normally, we would, have you in our library and we get to meet in person, but at least we could do this over Zoom. I'm really thrilled we could make it work in some capacity. So thank you again.
You are so welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and I didn't have to get on an airplane, so already I'm just happy.
Yeah, I attended your 10 a.m. Presentation with students yesterday, and you mentioned to them too that you hate to fly, and so do I. I'm so scared of flying. So I was like, oh, me too. I feel you. I identify with that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to ask, since I'm a librarian at the public library, is about what are your memories and experiences of the library when you were a kid, whether that was at your school library or the public library. I think I read that you moved around a lot as a kid, so I don't know if that impacted your library experiences, but what are your memories around that?
Okay, well, I think my real relationship with library was at Highland Elementary in Seaside, California. I think the first thing I did was I made sure I read every book that had a Black person on it. Um, and so I was reading all the all the biographies of mainly I think it was a lot of people from like colonial periods. So Phyllis Wheatley, um, Crispus Attucks, Jupiter Hammond, and then Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, and and so forth and so on. So I was like, okay, read everything, so that was first and foremost. And but I loved I loved like Beverly Cleary and what else? The Boxcar Children, and my favorite book was Island of the Blue Dolphin. And I got to a point where my the librarian was noticing, what I was reading, and she knew that I read above those books, and so she said, um, I'm going to order books for you. And so she did. She ordered like Harriet the Spy, which I took with me. Actually, she gave it to me because I was leaving. Once again, we were pulling up stakes and leaving. So I read Harriet the Spy from the time that we left California and through all the states that we crossed and into Georgia. I was lucky enough that when we moved from Georgia to New York, Jamaica, Queens, New York, my grandmother lived right around the corner from the library. And because we could not go, like we were so, as kids, my sister, brother, and I were used to playing outside, running outside and playing hard. That's what we did. But there was none of that where we lived in Queens, New York. So there was the lo there okay, we had Star Trek, we had the Mets on TV to watch, and we had the library around the corner. So I was in that library probably every day because that's where I was allowed to go. And I read mainly New York Times bestsellers. I remember I checked out Love Story and I read it in one day. um, and then I was like reading like Harold Robbins, the Carpetbaggers and stuff like that. And while my sister was reading the more literary works, but I did find Christian Hunter, and I found every book, every reference book about writing and becoming a writer. So much so that the librarian had to say to me, Rita, there are other patrons who would like to check those books out. I mean, I would check them out, bring them back, and then as soon as they went back up on the shelves, check them out again. They were mines, mines, mines. And and so that's where I learned how to prepare a manuscript and how what SACE was, self-addressed stamped envelope, and how much they paid and where to send my stories to. Oh yes, I was typing stories. I would rent the typewriter from my sister and type up stories and send them out to Ladies Home Journal, Could This Marriage Be Saved, and Red Book and McCall's, and then also to uh, yes, to Playboy magazine. I had a story about a Vietnam veteran. I figured that was really good for them. Yeah. So I would like type up those stories and send them. They were all rejected, but I was learning how to prepare a manuscript and very serious about writing every day. And if I did not have that library around the corner with those reference books, it would have taken me longer to find them. But boy, I was so glad I had that, because all of those books, even though I had to return them, they became my book, mine. And that's where I read a lot about the Black Panthers. I could go and check out those books right there. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I don't know if you mentioned it to the kids yesterday or if I read it elsewhere, but your first book, Blue Tights, it took 8 years for you to get that published. Is that right? Can you talk a little
yes.
bit about how you kept persisting through that long time period?
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of that has to do with, well, it has to do with a lot of things. It was during my apprenticeship. I was still learning to write, but I was also 22 years old and I knew how to write. You can't tell me how to write. This is my style. This is what I have to say. I was not really ready for criticism, which you have to be open to criticism. I don't want anybody to touch it. Okay, maybe change a word or two, but nothing else. So I did get an agent right away. I submitted a package. Why? Because I had checked out those books from the library, and I knew how to go about doing that. And I got an agent who was on Fifth Avenue, and I learned later that he was quite a figure in the literary scene. I did not know that back then. I was 22, and just I was doing him a favor. So, um, and he read my work and he made suggestions, and I thought, but okay, I will make some of these changes, and I did. And then he went out and tried to agent my book, and I got feedback, which feedback. What is that? Aren't they supposed to just accept my book? What is wrong with these people? So it was a whole learning curve. I got frustrated and took my book back from my agent, and I will sell it myself. I know where the publishers are. But I had a lot to learn. First of all, I was writing about, I had to kind of know what a YA book was. And as real as I wanted to make my story, I had to know that my audience would be schools and libraries. So it would have to be appropriate for schools and school libraries. So that was something that I had not taken into account while I was telling this story. So there were a lot of subjects in the book. I was mainly talking about self esteem and physical self image and troubles that girls can get into when they don't have a positive self esteem. And I did not want to make her, the main character, a complete victim. I wanted her to feel strong in who she was, even with a low self esteem, which means that she didn't always come off she definitely was not a role model. She was someone who had a journey, um, and um, so that's kind of a challenge, somewhat, especially for school and library books back then, back in the 80s. It took a while, and I had to mature and say to myself, Rita, you have to get ready for what writing is, which is rewriting. And I finally found a publisher who took a chance on me. And when she finished editing my book and gave it to me for me to revise. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. Anyway, but I knew that I wanted to publish this story, so I hunkered down and did it. And I learned so much from that first book and through all those years of trying. Um, and so I say to everyone and anyone, don't give up, and especially don't give up on learning, on growing your craft. That is so important. And do welcome the feedback because that is just a part of writing.
Yeah, yeah. So, I have a fifth grade daughter of my own, and her teacher read them, Clayton Bird Goes Underground, and
Oh,
then I read her One Crazy Summer. We read a chapter a night once we found out that you were the visiting author, and she loved the book. We loved reading it together. And, I kind of got a little bit obsessed with the mother character, and I'm reading this out loud to my daughter, and she and I are having like very different reactions to the character of the mother. Like, I think for my daughter, the character caused a lot of anxiety. And of course it was heartbreaking to read about, the confusion of the kids and how they're desperately seeking her attention. And as you said yesterday to students, it's a shame for any child to have to give up their childhood, as Delphine did in so many ways. But at the same time, and as I'm reading it out loud, I found myself feeling a lot of empathy for the mother character, as an adult and as a mother myself. Um, and I'm trying to explain to my daughter that, she was kind of trapped by the expectations that were placed on women at that time and still today. So am I just a brutal and cold person, or how did you feel about the mother character? Did you feel empathy for her? How do you feel like kids would respond to her?
okay. So there's something that I do when I write a book. I always feel that there is the story that is the story that you follow, and that is the story that I feel that most young readers can follow the what is happening. And then there is what is underneath, all those layers underneath. And those are the things that grow as you mature as a person and you're out in the world and you're experiencing things. And so now these things become touchstones for you and you begin to relate to them, or then you kind of interact and have your own back and forth with the character and how you feel. So yes and yes. um, for children, oftentimes life is unfair, and they are subject to whatever the adults dictate around them. But in this case, the mother wasn't quite dictating. Well, she was advocating for her space for herself, but not telling them what to do. She was not mothering them in the way that they needed it, that in a way that Delphine wanted it and also didn't want it because she was always a kind of a surrogate mother to her sisters. But yes, it Fern is the one who, in her way, stands up to Cecile. Um, and Vanetta is the one who is always, we are angry at Vanetta a lot, but she is so brokenhearted. She has been crying her whole life, crying for attention, crying to be picked up, crying out to be noticed. And this is what the absence of her mother's attention has done for her, to her. And then, of course, there is Delphine, who has lost a good deal of her childhood and her ability to just be a kid and have some fun and not have to worry about anyone. But yet, she also needs that mother. It she she needs to stand up to her, but she also needs her mother, because now she is starting her journey into becoming a young woman, just that little tiny step toward it. And so who do you turn to during those times? You're looking at your mother. You're looking at your mother to show you, even if she doesn't say anything, you look at her, and then that becomes your guide. You hear her words, you see how she behaves and responds. Now, Cecile is indeed a complex character and a real risk to put inside what is a children's book. But I always felt that children can never truly know their parents. There is that chasm between adulthood and childhood, and a child has their place, and that as they mature, they begin to understand who their parents are, and everything, and they can accept them. Hopefully, they can accept their faults, because they themselves have grown and they have surpassed their parents in a way, and that's where forgiveness can come from. And it's just that the journey is often so difficult. In this case, yes, you are correct. Cecile is someone who is damaged by insecurity of her young life, and but also, she has something deep within her, but yet the world does not quite make a way for her to express it. And so when she finally has it and has her space, she feels threatened by anything that's going to take that away, because it is taking away herself. So those are concepts that are harder for young children to understand, but in a way they kind of understand it because they understand the unfairness of the world. But yes, those layers are in the story.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So I'm wondering too about, you mentioned Black girlhood with students yesterday, and I know that your works are not necessarily autobiographical, that is a common misperception even about your works. But are there specific qualities or experiences of Black girlhood as you experienced it that you wanted to highlight or clearly depict in your trio of books? About Delphine and her sisters, or even about Black childhood in general, as with Clayton Bird?
Okay, so on one hand, okay, so now I'm going to talk about my relationship, mainly with my mother, because in my vocabulary, in my literary vocabulary, mother is a larger than life presence. A mother is the god of the book, and so power emanates from the mother figure. So. Um, my mother she was the best mother she knew how to be. And that was not always easy on my sister, brother, and I. Um, she was fun in so many ways, but she was also very hard. She was very creative. But she could also be very restrictive toward my siblings and I. Um, and so, but I always kind of knew my way around my mother because I'm going to say that even from the very early childhood, I was very much an observer of behavior because I was always left to myself. So I always looked out into the world and just observed. Didn't have the language for it, but I could see things happening. But I was also the baby, so that really kind of helped me a lot. Um, but I understood her. It didn't make it easier, especially as a child. I understood her. Um, um, and I have to also say that I would not be who I am if not for her. I would not be as strong as I am. I would not be as forgiving as I am. I would not probably not have that same sense of exploration in terms of creativity. And so, but the one thing that my mother gave my sister, brother, and I is she gave us childhood. We were kids and we were not to forget that. While my other friends who were my age and maybe a year older, they were the Delphines in their family. They were taking care of kids. They were, have you ever seen chitlins? You know, they were scrubbing like chitlins and making cornbread and collard greens and diapering kids and doing they were doing everything, you know, cleaning and ironing. Now back then ironing was not ironing like it is today, because you didn't have like that surface, that no burn surface. Oh no, you know, you dare not burn anything. And then you had all these pleats and darts and this and that and this fabric and that. Okay, so anyway, you know, it was work. And so I never knew anything about that stuff. I was a kid, and so was my sister and brother. You know, we did homework. We ran outside and played. We were like we were very athletic. We were very scientifically curious. We were always doing experiments. Some experiments with mommy's food. She was not the grand cook. Like, oh my goodness, blackened this and that, rice caked together, like, you know, like you had to like chisel it to eat it. Like, um, but she was our mother, Miss Essie, and we were children. We never got that confused. We knew we were not the adults. We did not talk back to our parents. We did not even think we were, we were adults or anything like that, anywhere near it, because my mother ruled with an iron fist. So the women in my book tend to be, like shards kind of carved off of the mold, and then I shape them to fit the book. Um, but because I was able to have a full childhood, and I was pretty much a child when I went off to college. Anybody else who knew me in my freshman year would say, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." Uh, um, but because I had such a childhood, I always felt it was important for me to spotlight girls who did not have that, and I would see it a lot in neighborhoods. I would see teen mothers. When they show teen mothers, they usually show someone who is 16, 17, even 18, and they start talking about, oh, teen mother, 18. But I was seeing teen mothers who were 12 and 13, 14 years old with more than one child. And so that kind of really prompted me to want to really talk about the cessation of girlhood. And it's because I am such a student of Entezaki Shange, the poet, and her play for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow was enough. One of the lines always stuck with me. It starts scattered half notes, visions of never having been a girl. And so it's that really start to frame, this is what I'm going to write about. And so from even a reading like Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. Actually, Blue Tides is kind of my title homage to The Bluest Eye. Um, but then I said, yes, this is part of the plague of our community. If our children do not have that room to grow, to truly experience wonder, if their eyes are dulled by the reality of adulthood and life too soon, how do they then pass on that spirit of wonder and wanting to be out in the world and to make your mark? How do you pass that on if you don't have that? So that's what a lot of my books about girls, about young women is about, kind of fighting for that little bit of wonder, which for me spells hope.
Thank you. Yeah. So, um, okay, we have maybe 5 minutes left. I'm trying to decide which questions to cut here at the last minute. Okay, so you just were able to write a volume in the She Persisted series about Florence Joyner Griffith. Can you share maybe like some fun facts or
Oh
what
my
you
God.
thought was most interesting about Flojo's life?
Oh my goodness. It is all so interesting. Okay, the first thing, which, okay, is not in the book because I couldn't fit it in there, is that she had a pet boa constrictor and she wrapped it around her neck and she would go walking. This was when she was, she was a kid. She'd go walking around with it, and so once she went to a mall with her pet constrictor slash accessory, and the security had to ask her to leave because people were frightened. They were very frightened. So, so she is my kind of girl.
That's awesome. Yeah, that series is really popular at my library, so I'm excited to get this volume and add it to our collection. And I also wonder about your new book that's coming out in May. I'm not sure how much you can or want to, I don't want you to give away too much, but I'm wondering if you can share anything about the new book, Sitting in St. James. I know you mentioned yesterday that it deals with the topic of slavery that you said you never wanted to write about. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about why you felt that way and what prompted you to finally decide to write about it, or anything else you're able to share about the book.
Oh, sure, sure. Just try to stop me from talking about a sitting in St. James. Hold me back. When I first started writing for teens, I was in my 20s and early 30s, and so when I was visiting, doing my library visits and school visits, the readers, especially the girls, would say, "Can you not write about the civil rights era and slavery? That's all we get. Can we talk about what's going on right now?" And so I promised them, "Oh, I'm not going to write about any of that." And so the book that I'm most known for is set in post civil rights era. So there you go, promise broken. And then this book is set in 1860, which is slavery. So uh, this story was inspired by a dream, a daydream, and a very little boy who was attended a screening of the Black Panther documentary by Stanley Nelson. I was on the panel, and it was time for Q&A, and the young man asked, why do they hate us? White people, police, why do they hate us? And I said, um, it's because when they see us, they don't see a human being. And I knew that that was not enough of an answer. And so I wanted to really talk about that. I wanted to talk about the people who felt entitled to own Black people, sell them, separate families, torture, and kill Black people. I wanted to talk about that. And so instead of, say, shifting the focus on having the focus on the enslaved, my ancestors on both sides, um, I decided to shift the gaze toward those people who whose actions, whose entitlement um, is the basis of, for me, what we're living today. And so I did not want to create monsters and villains because then that's just so easy to reject. That's just so easy to either hate or reject, or just kind of push that aside. I wanted to make make people that you could feel for, and also um, uh, be disturbed by, and also not feel for them, and see what they're doing and see what their attitudes were. So this is a story. Um, uh, because it's me, it is going to have, I find the human study to be always a humorous study, so it's going to have those kinds of notes in it, and it's a story of that runs along the timeline of Madame Sylvie Bernardin de Marais Dacier Gilbert, and all that she has gone through, which includes the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, and now we're on the dawning of the Civil War. But basically, after all that she has been through, she feels entitled to a few things, and one being a portrait sitting. Why? Because it's tradition and it's done, and she wants the portrait painter who is a descendant of Marie Antoinette's portrait painter. And so I've created a character who could be descended from Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun, and so he comes into the story, but uh, her sense of entitlement, it's what leads to the downfall of the plantation, which her son Lucien is doing everything he can think of to save, including having his daughter, who is a quadroon, also, which means she's has a quarter black blood, and that he is planning for her to marry into a wealthy family that has a mulatto son, and it affects his son, who is a West Point cadet, who is engaged to the colonel's daughter, but is in love with a fellow cadet. And so back then, it wasn't co-ed, so he is in love with another young man, and then it affects everybody there, and so this is what you're going to see in this story. There is a comic relief kind of character, and it is Jane. So I will just say, keep all eyes on Jane. She is one of my favorites. But in the kind of in the background, but ever present, are the enslaved people. Starting with Thisbe, or Tisbe, as Madame would say. Um, who is her personal servant, who she took from her family when she was just 6 years old. Um, and and then there's the maids, the twin maids who clean up and serve everybody, and they know all the secrets. And then there's also the cook Lily, who has a deep tragedy, and but she must cook for them in spite of what she knows what they have done. So sitting in St. James, I had a lot of I really enjoyed doing the research, and a lot of it was very hard, but the truth is often very hard. So I figured, just keep going. It will be of service one day. I hope. That's always the hope, that it's meaningful, that it's of service.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, One more quick thing that I'm curious about. You've won numerous literary medals and awards. I mean, we see the kind of stickers that are on the book cover. What do you receive? Is it an actual medal? Do you get a certificate? What does the author receive?
I get a crown and I wear it to the shopping mall, to Dunkin' Donuts. I wish they would have a crown and a scepter. But what I do get, I get a plaque for the Coretta Scott King Award. I get a plaque, and it is beautiful. And I have three of them. Um, and for the Newbery, I also get yet another plaque with like the silverish kind of metal certificate on it. So that, and they're so heavy that I still have not hung them on my wall, for fear that they will bring the wall down. Um, uh, for the National Book Award, I have not won the award, but I have been a finalist, and so I get like the necklace with the medallion, and that medallion is like heavy. It's like a weapon. But honestly, the first time I got one, it was for Jumped, and I remember I wore it to Dunkin' Donuts and
Yeah,
everywhere.
I would too.
And
Yeah.
I was so thrilled I didn't know what to do. Uh, yeah, but yes, and but I guess seeing the stickers on the books is so important. It 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 It's important for me, for a special reason. One crazy summer really did save me. I was on the verge of being evicted from my apartment. I had a hard time just surviving. And so when I did get that award, well, all of those awards on I call it Pumpkin Monday, like when Cinderella's either going to be in the pumpkin patch with the mice, or yeah, she'll be in Glass Slipper City. But when those announcements came, um, I didn't exactly know what that would mean, but I knew that it had saved me, and I received a bonus from my publisher, and so I am still in my apartment, hooray! But what those awards did, especially for One Crazy Summer, is that it put my books in so many schools throughout the country, and then there are translations as well, and so that allows me to write. I'm someone who can no longer chew gum and jump up and down at the same time. So I really have to do one thing at a time. I can't hold another job. I'm too messy and too like scattered. So it really does help me that my books are in all the schools, and I'm so grateful for that, and grateful for the recognition by the librarians and whoever voted me in for those awards. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, it's been more than 30 minutes. It always goes so fast. I'm going to wrap it up, but I want to say thank you to our sponsors, the ICCSD Foundation and Hills Bank, and thanks most of all to Rita Williams-Garcia. It's truly an honor and a privilege for me to speak with an author of your caliber. And I'm fascinated to hear about the creative process of creative people. So this was so much fun for me. And I really appreciate your making the time to meet with me today. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. It was indeed my pleasure.
Thanks.